Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm just making sure that we are live and that everybody can see and hear me. Thank you all for joining. If you are watching live, it's great that you have taken the time out of your day to spend this time with me. If you are watching on the playback, thank you for taking the time to do so. I am in front of a photograph that I took myself this summer. I'm going to do the hellos, but see if you can guess what I'm sat in front of. So, doing it ourselves, you have indeed caught the live. Good to see you. Thank you. Hi, Liz. Happy Monday to you too. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Monday. If it's still Monday where you are, I hope that your Monday is going well and that your week has become very fine. Shane, hello. Happy March. Yes, thank you. Mother's Day was wonderful. My husband did a whole thing where we went and painted pottery, which was hit and miss with a 3-year-old. He had a lovely time painting a pottery shark for all of about 15 minutes, and then he was done with that activity. And then it was a case of wrangling him for the rest of the time. And then my husband did an afternoon tea, and he built a tent in our living room. So we had a little picnic in a kind of it was almost like a kind of old style medieval tent. So it was very salubrious. We had a lovely time. So thank you very much. And anybody who did celebrate Mother's Day yesterday, I hope you also were spoilt rotten, had a wonderful time. Hello, Marianne. Thank you. Welcome indeed to the party. Hello. Hi, MJ. Good to see you. Seeing if anybody's guessed it. Oh, we have got some good guesses already in. Thank you for joining us from Australia. I have no idea what time or day it is with you, but I hope you're having a lovely time, whatever it may be. And let's see. Yes, we have got Crazy Artist Lady spot on. It is indeed Corfe Castle. Correct. It is indeed a castle. Corfe. Yeah, we are absolutely. Thank you. Good guess. Yes, we are. I am sat in front of a picture of Corfe Castle. When my son saw this on the walk up, he lost it. He was like, Elsa! Elsa! He wasn't disappointed that he didn't find Elsa. He did do lots of very dangerous things. He tried to squeegee his way out of an arrow slit that was very high up, and both my husband and I, despite remembering that our son has in fact got a rib cage, we did both simultaneously panic and go no, because he had like one arm. This child has no fear. And then there was a window with no real barrier or any glazing in it. As you can see, it is a ruin that my son was trying to climb up on the window ledge. So there was panic involved because I forgot for a moment that my child knows no fear. So yeah, Corfe was great. I did have some conniptions every now and again at the thought that he was going to try and jump off the ramparts. So let us do the usual things. We have got some updates, some repatriation / decolonization news. We've got some new news. We have got ding dong news, and we also have some events and exhibitions. There is, if you are checking out the description box, you may notice there is no opera pinboard this week. That is because I have had issues this week with getting my opera pinboards to function, so I didn't use them. And I'm going to see maybe next time if it's a massive hindrance to not have it, because we still do very much have the numbered list in the description box linking to the articles. So I'm sort of hoping that we won't necessarily feel the lack of the opera pinboard this week. The numbered list in the description box does correspond to the numbers that you will see on the bottom of the slides that we're going to be going through. I have some people to thank for sending me articles. I'm very grateful, as always. People take the time out of their day to send articles over to me when they see them. There is a number of people have sent very similar articles. So there is a lot of news that a number of people sent me. So we have got a slightly smaller number of slides, but that is because I received about the same amount of news items, but there was quite a lot of duplication, which just goes to show that we are starting to become interested in very similar things. And hopefully that will make for a more cohesive show that more people are very interested in reading about and looking into. I have also seen news articles being emailed in and being linked to me on Twitter, which I'm going to keep calling it because I'm going to. It's going to be, I haven't had time to add those into the spreadsheet, the slideshow today, but they will, if they are new news, they will be added in next time around. So that is, I think, what I have. And without further ado, let's jump straight in to the thank yous. I need to thank Yvonne, Alicia, Kathy, Elverta, Mary, Kris, Felem, Shane, Jessie, Kat, name twin, Elaine, Amy, Joseph, and Pandora Snudpuckle. Thank you so much for taking the time. Liz says, no matter what Elon Musk says, it will always be Twitter. I tell you what, when Elon Musk stops dead naming his trans daughter, I will stop calling Twitter Twitter. How about that for a fair shake of a lamb's tail, shall we say? Let us. Oh, Shane. I will try and get it working. I have noticed, I'm not sure if they're doing an update. I have noticed the last few times working on the Opera pin board that it's quite slow to load. I think maybe they're working on updates for the pin board. The last sort of 3 times I've been putting them together, it's been quite glitchy. So I will try again, and hopefully, because I found it really useful too as a way to consolidate the all of the news items before putting it into the slideshow. It was really great visually, but it has been glitching. So we'll see how we go. So this is not added into the news items because I didn't know where to put this. But did anybody see this on the British Museum social media? This is a way of them promoting their Roman Empire exhibition, which we talked about last time. It's been having really interesting reviews. And they are capitalizing on a couple of TikTok trends. The first one being this is from months and months ago. Somebody pointing out that apparently men think about the Roman Empire at least once a day. And so there were people going around asking their boyfriends, husbands, men in their life, how often they thought about the Roman Empire. And it turns out that it does bear fruit. Since then, the trend has emerged that my Roman Empire is, and then it will usually be women saying something like, my Roman Empire is what's happening with the state of Photoshop at Kensington Palace, for example. What this says is, girlies, if you're single and looking for a man, this is your sign to go to the British Museum's new exhibition, Life in the Roman Army, and walk around looking confused. You're welcome, kiss. So I think the joke is supposed to be men think about the Roman Empire and men can't help but mansplain. So ladies, look stupid and let the men mansplain to you, and then maybe you'll get to be a trad wife. I don't know. It doesn't feel like either of the trends to me. It just I don't honestly. I want to know who is in charge of the British Museum's PR, social media, because we had the really tone deaf decision to put the London Fashion Week show in with the Parthenon marbles, which we talked about last time, and now this. I don't know why they've done this. I honestly have to say. I think they've misunderstood the joke page, that it doesn't feel like, you could even do the trend would be funnier to be like, my Roman Empire is here. It's also, for me, the really baffling thing is that they have one of the most famous classicists on their board, somebody who has made countless documentaries and written countless books on life in ancient Rome, and that is Mary Beard. What is the thought process here? I think it was, Liz, hoping it's a really well-intended joke that fell flat. I think it was a well-intended attempt to get involved in a pre-existing, although quite old by now, sort of trend on social media. But they've misunderstood the trend and they've somehow caused loads of offence. It's really baffling. It's just really baffling. Just having a little look at the comments. In a world of Romans, be a Boudica. I mean, and the thing is, people have really been kind of. This has got people really aerated, and I think in some cases they have then taken this as a springboard to sort of talk about more broadly the British Museum's own behaviour and their own what people are frankly saying looks like a continuation of an imperial mindset in what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. And they are talking about the imagery used in this particular TikTok, and they're saying that it feels imperial. Some people said it even felt almost fascistic. So it's really not gone down well. Really not gone down well. Yeah. And it's a shame, because I think that there could have been a way to make this appealing. I mean, even a less clumsy joke would have been to sort of go, ladies, we all know the thing about how often men think about the Roman Empire. Why don't you go and share your facts with them? Let's start a new trend for womansplaining. I don't know, something. That's hackneyed. But go and tell them what you know about the Roman Empire. Something along those lines, rather than sit pretty, be stupid, and let them explain things to you. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I just wouldn't have made the joke. I just wouldn't have made the joke. They lost the chance to make it appealing with single and looking for a man. I mean, really, yeah, it's it fundamentally misunderstands all of the conversations that are going on. Well, Wheezy, the female equivalent of a toga, I am by no means going to claim to be in any way an expert on this, but I don't think there is a female equivalent of a toga. And there is that sort of belted shift, but I can't remember what it's called. It has a very separate name to toga. And if anybody knows what it's called, I'm talking about the things you see in images. It's like, it's got straps and a kind of boaty neckline, and then it belts in the middle. Yeah, Paige. Look, if there is something about girlies, particularly girlies coming from. It's one thing if somebody who is femme presenting gets onto Instagram or TikTok and says verbally with their face, girlies, that's one thing. But it does feel very different when it's the British Museum, of many museums, feel quite masculine in identity to me. The V&A less so. Maybe it's because it's about there's frocks, which could just be why I'm gendering museums. I don't know, but in my head, the British Museum feels male. And so having a male-feeling museum talk to me like that, I agree. I can definitely see where that's coming from. Michelle, I don't think you misunderstand anything. I think it's the manosphere raising its head. I mean, and that's the thing. Who is this actually appealing to? Is this actually appealing to girlies, or is this appealing to men who think this is what women talk like? Rachel has got the name for it. Women wore stoia. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, even that, a little bit spicy, isn't it? Tired about hearing the man's version of Rome. Come check out how it really went down. You know, is your man obsessed with the Roman Empire? Come and find out what really went down. Yeah, absolutely. Stola. Thank you. Also called a Vesta Longa. Fabulous. Wonderful. Okay, so that's what the British Museum have done. There's a part of me that thinks, does their social media team hate them? Is just like the person who was stealing all of the things. Is this an inside job to try and bring them down and embarrass them? I don't know. Right, let's hop into the updates. We talked about this discovery quite a while ago, but a study of it, these Egyptian queen's bracelets, which are so beautiful, and a reproduction has been made. So the image on the left, the bracelet on the left, is an electro type reproduction made in 1947, and they have looked into this bracelet, and from it they have found things out about trade relationships and metallurgy. These bracelets are decorated with, we're told, inlays of turquoise, carnelian, and lapis lazuli. So it's made, as we can see, it's made to look like butterflies. And these are apparently unique among Egyptian artifacts because they, first of all, have managed to not be robbed by grave robbers, but also that they're made of silver, which is apparently a material that does not otherwise show up in the region's archaeological record until the Middle Bronze Age, which is several centuries after this Egyptian queen, the one in question of these bracelets, after she died. So there were X-ray images, cross-sections of the bracelets taken, and they found that it was repeatedly annealed and cold hammered. And in case of this bracelet fragment, it would have been hammered to flatten it into a thin sheet. So this leads them to conclude the potential geographical extent of commodity procurement networks that were utilized by the Egyptian state during the early Old Kingdom and at the very height of when they're building the pyramids. So they think that based upon the isotope ratios they found, the silver in these bracelets might have come from an island group in the Aegean Sea, possibly from a town on the tip of the Greek mainland, or either and not, which they thought previously, from the Anatolian region, which is in present day Turkey. So the bracelets, I think, was made. It's the materials that have been traded, and it could have come from as far away as the Aegean Sea or the Greek mainland. So, how interesting. This is another update. We have got more information about a shipwreck we talked about previously and the spices that were found on it. This is a shipwreck that happened in 1495. So, Hans of Denmark and Norway anchored a warship off the southern coast of Sweden. And his boat apparently mysteriously caught fire and then sank to the bottom of the Baltic. On it, a whole store of foods have quite remarkably survived. We are told that this discovery of a substantially complete royal medieval pantry offers us ideas and insights into how the nobility in this particular region lived, what they ate, and it also shows that this Nordic region was not an isolated backwater to continental Europe, rather a vibrant and connected group of emerging nation states with regional style and consumption patterns that were as sophisticated and diverse as those on the continent. They found spices from far-flung locales. They found ginger, clove, peppercorns, dill, mustard, and caraway, fruits and vegetables like cucumbers, grapes, raspberries and blackberries. They found almonds and hazelnuts. And Stuart, you said, is that saffron? Yes, they did find saffron on this shipwreck. And the medieval spice trade is definitely reaching Northern Europe. The spice merchants are coming, and they are bringing heaven. We are, and we are talking. This is for the royalty, the nobility, for the richest of the rich, and they are bringing spices like saffron, which I believe even today is worth its weight in gold, or more than its weight in gold. Things like cinnamon. There was a story that did the rounds, perhaps an attempt for spice merchants to justify the inflated price that they were charging for cinnamon. They claimed that the only way you could get cinnamon was from the nest of a phoenix. And as mythology tells them, there's only ever one phoenix. It reproduces by destroying itself. So globally, you have one phoenix's nest, and it's the heat of the phoenix that creates the cinnamon. And that's why cinnamon is a heating and drying spice. And as well as these things being about flavoring food and that luxury and that conspicuous consumption, lots and lots of spices are prized in particular because of their actual medicinal value or their perceived medicinal value as part of a humoral theory of medicine. And in particular, in the case of cinnamon, its capacity, because it is a warm and dry spice, being connected to the phoenix in this way makes sense. It can therefore have that effect to warm and dry out somebody whose humours are too cold and wet, for example. So that is I'm checking the comments. Yes, saffron is still very pricey. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about saffron, Wendy, more than its weight in gold, I should imagine, for saffron. Yes, these are luxuries in the extreme. And I am going to check on what the medicinal qualities of saffron would have been perceived as being. I believe that we still talk about clove oil for it's still used for dental pain, I think. So with some of these things, they still can be used, or they have been altered into a kind of chemically created version of the things that were being used. Ah, MJ, cinnamon is mostly cassia these days. That's why it's cheaper. I don't know what cassia is, but thank you. I'm going to look into that. Wendy, you also said actually cassia. To be a medieval spice merchant, there are some great stories of medieval spice merchants, and these are individuals. This kind of I think we think about that real explosion of social mobility as being a very early modern thing. But these are individuals who are traveling the world, or certainly have connections that are traveling the world. And within that, they are having these stories from far flung places. So not only are they providing a product that nobles and royals want, not only does that potentially buy them access into the most intimate spaces in noble houses and palaces, but as well as providing these things that are luxury commodities, they also, if they're good, they come with stories. And there's one thing that medieval European royalty and nobility love in the climate of the troubadours. They love a story. They love a story. And we seemingly have now a conclusion to this story of the recoating of the pyramids, which is that following the protests, Egypt has decided that it will now not renovate that pyramid at Giza after all. It was billed as being the project of the century, but now the plan has been this plan has now been, I believe, permanently shelved, and this is because they're saying this is because it was met with an international backlash. And a celebrated Egyptologist called Monica Hanna refers to it as, quote, tantamount to tampering with Egyptian antiquities and undermining its antiquity and history. And so a review committee assessed the project, and this committee has now unanimously objected to the reinstallation of these granite blocks. And thus, principally, this is because these granite casing blocks had been scattered around the base of the pyramid thousands of years ago. And so, because of this scattering, it's effectively impossible for them to replace them in the appropriate location. And in potentially putting them in the wrong place, you devalue the archaeology and you cause greater confusion. So it's now not happening. There is going to be a 2024, as busy season of digs in 2024 on the Roanoke site. They are looking for more evidence of the Roanoke village, the one that hosted Sir Walter Raleigh's explorers in 1584. This has already started. It's a week-long dig starting on March the 4th. So does that mean it's ending today? It will have been the last day. And this is going to be building on other things that were found last summer. They found pottery, Algonquin pottery from the time, and they also found a ring of copper wire that was about the size of a quarter. Thought that it might have once been part of an earring that was worn by a Native American warrior. This wire, though, would have, they believe, have been brought to America by English explorers as part of their trade goods. So this is theoretically evidence of cultural exchange. Although what the settlers got in return and whether it was actually substantially worth more than the value of the copper, considering the way they spoke about it in the text, I think that's highly likely. However, it does point out that for Native Americans, the copper did have a almost spiritual significance. It was prized in the way that English people valued gold and silver. Tribal chiefs would honor brave warriors with things made of beaten copper, which indicates the value that Native peoples placed upon it. So I'll be checking out the firstcolonyfoundation.org to see what they have found, what they are going to report, and I presume there's going to be an update for you fairly soon. Maybe not for next time, but I think hopefully soon afterwards. Another new dig is planned. Mysterious features that were found during a survey of Sutton Hoo are the reason behind a fresh archaeological dig. So this grave, burial ship and treasures were first revealed in 1939. Researchers said that the new dig that's planned for June is going to see if newly discovered features were archaeological or geological. The unearthing of this Anglo-Saxon burial ship did make its way into a Netflix show, a Netflix film, 2021, called The Dig, which I haven't seen, but yes, people mentioning this is going to be, it's the National Trust teaming up with Time Team. This is going to build on work that was carried out by Time Team in 2021 and 2022. And at that point, they conducted something called magnetometry and ground penetrating radar surveys. While doing so, the geophysical survey identified several mysterious features. So they're presumably going to see what's going to be happening in those and what they're all about. And they think that it's likely that prehistoric flint tools and fragments of Anglo-Saxon objects and burials are going to be found during this dig. Brian asked a question that I don't know the answer to. What does who mean in Old English? If anybody knows, please, if anybody has the capacity to Google that, please pop it into the comments, because I don't know. So if anybody knows what who means, please do share. We have updates on the Sycamore Gap tree. We have been told that new life is springing from rescued seeds and twigs. This is the... Oh, here we go. Sutton means the southern farmstead or settlement, and Ho refers to a hill shaped like a heel spur. And that is according to Google. Thank you, Kit of the Weird Woods. That is very helpful. Thank you very much. I love a bit of shared mind melding. Love it. So basically, what has happened here is that as soon as news broke of this tree being felled, for whatever reason, and I'm sure when the court case happens, we're going to find the motivation, a team of individuals sprung into action. While police were closing down the site and seeing what was going on, they individuals who specialize in essentially propagating plants went down there and tried to get hold of as many cuttings that they could as possible, because once a tree like this is cut, you've got a really limited amount of time to get those samples to essentially save what you can of the genetic line of this particular tree. So they have these specimens. As you can see, there is a greenhouse in an undisclosed location, which I don't know if that indicates that they know the motivation behind cutting down the tree, and thus they are protecting these saplings because they are potentially another target. Anyway, this is a high security greenhouse somewhere in Devon. They aren't saying where. This greenhouse in general has copies of some of the UK's most valuable plants and trees. The apple tree, apparently, that Sir Isaac Newton said inspired his theories on gravity, Also, a 2,500-year-old yew tree that witnessed Henry VIII's relationship with Anne Boleyn in the 1530s. So, what a greenhouse to keep. They are referred to as being backup plants, ensuring the nation's heritage in case of an outbreak of disease, devastating storm, or an attack on the trees. And there are also seed libraries of, I suppose, less special, significant plants. I know there's a massive seed library held at the Natural History Museum in London, where there are, I think, varieties of almost every seed or cuttings of every plant that's they have been able to that exists currently and that potentially previously existed and is now extinct. So when you go into this greenhouse, you've got to go through disinfectant to stop any diseases from contaminating it. The plan is that this tree will be allowed to live on. I'm not sure if the plan is to replant it. I wonder if because there were questions about whether new life might sprout from the stump itself. But either way, there is a backup should it be needed. So we shall see what happens. Stuart, I believe Kew have such a library. Would not surprise me at all. I think that these sorts of seed libraries are, and lots of them are, of course, for pollinating flowers, but also for fruit and veg and things that we eat. Rumpelstiltskin Snudpuckle, you've got a seed storage in Colorado for the exact same reason. Yes, so these seed libraries, I think, are they're going to be in a variety of places. We are now going to move on to repatriation / decolonization. And the first piece of news is arguably a question of decolonization, or rather a reaction to attempts to decolonize. This gentleman is a legal strategist who is behind the Supreme Court case that dismantled affirmative action in college admissions. Now, I have not been keeping abreast of the overall effect of that. I heard it had happened. I don't know what the effect of that is going to be. So this gentleman has decided that he's going to go after a internship. This is a complaint filed in February by the American Alliance for Equal Rights. Claims that the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Latino has, because they have got a Latino Museum Studies program undergraduate internship, which is intended to be, or it certainly seems to be, privileging people from that community. This individual and the group he works with are saying that this violates the US Constitution. He claims in the 2 years the internship program has operated, the museum has never hired an intern who identified as non-Latino. This is a 12-week internship program, quote, designed to increase hands-on training opportunities for Latina, Latino, and Latinx identifying undergraduate students interested in art museum careers. This a spokesman for the museum said, quote, we are unable to provide a statement regarding this complaint. As a matter of policy, the Smithsonian does not comment on litigation. But the lawyer said that it's unfair and illegal to reserve participation in programs like the museum's internship for specific races and ethnicities. Quote, every student who's interested in this area of museum studies should have the opportunity to compete for an internship without their race being a determining factor. And if all things were equal, that would be fine, wouldn't it? Quote, it is our hope that the Smithsonian Institution ends these discriminatory programs and allows all students, regardless of their skin color, to compete for these important internships. Okay, let's think about the individuals that currently make up the core demographics in the academy and in museums. And granted, I can really only speak from a UK perspective, but I'm telling you here and now that the individuals who are able to do these internships, I don't know if this one's paid or not, but the majority of them are unpaid, work in museums and particularly art galleries and sales gallery spaces, relies upon people who are prepared to do incredibly low paid or even unpaid labor. The same is true of the academy. And so increasingly, it is individuals who come from generational wealth and extreme privilege. And for the most part, they are also individuals who culturally have been told that these museums are spaces and places for them. If you look at the boards of the vast majority of museums, there is a very clear demographic at play. A little Google about the schools and universities they went to tells you that there is a very clear other demographic at play too. So, yes, all being equal, it would be fine to say this should be open to everybody who has an interest. But it's not equal, is it? It's not equal. It's that I'm reminded of that image of people trying to watch, I think it's like a baseball game, and everybody's on the same height of block, but certain people are littler than others. So having the same when somebody has got a massive head start because of centuries of inequity is not fair. That's not equality, that's sameness. So what needs to happen is to balance the books, if you will. Some people need to get given a bigger box to stand on. And I can certainly speak, I can't speak from a position of being obviously not white. I can't speak from a position of not coming from privilege. I'm very fortunate that I had the luck of being born into a family where there was enough provision for me to be privately educated. And that is undeniably a leg up in a way that lots of other people, the vast majority of people, do not get. However, I did watch my mum, who was the first qualified female MOT examiner in my country, and she was in the motor trade for 25 years. And every single day of her working life, whenever she met a new person who came in for her to service their car or perform an MOT, they would ask to speak to her husband, to which she would say, well, you can, but he's a chartered accountant who can't change the fuse on a plug. I am a qualified MOT examiner. I would suggest you want to speak to me. And she'd go to conferences where she was the only woman there, and she'd have to put a chair against her door to block the door handle to stop men who were trying to break into her room. When people say that if you do not exist in that position of privilege, you have to be twice as good and work twice as hard, it's absolutely true. So it would be lovely if everybody applying was on an equal platform, but that's just not the case. It's just not the case. Sorry, that was my that was my soapbox for for the it's probably not the only one, I'm not gonna lie. Um, so I hope he fails on this. And Aurora. And since several southern states are repressing non-white history, this internship is supposed to be a way to balance the lack of public education in this realm of Latin and Native Central Americans. Yeah. I and I think there's also an element to which when we're trying to shape the future of museums, I say this all the time, if we actually want to, well, perhaps he doesn't, if you actually want to decolonize the space, if you want to shape museum spaces around um, and exhibits in ways that are culturally sensitive and have that understanding, then there needs to be, completely selfishly, there needs to be more diversity in the upper echelons of that. Um, so if we want an inclusive history, the museum space has to be inclusive. And here's the other thing. We also need to have a conversation about how you get your foot on that first rung of the ladder. We need to have conversations about how appealing, when we think about university debt, how appealing things like museum studies or history or conservation or literature are to first generation people who are coming to university for the first time. When university debt is crippling, when a 3-month unpaid internship is a luxury and, frankly, for many, an impossibility. How do people get on the first rung of the ladder in these professions when all of that is also stacked against people? But those are other conversations that need to be had. I don't think that unpaid internship should be a thing, particularly not in spaces where we are seeking to diversify the hiring. This is, I'm just going to show the start of this article, and this, I think, is why the repatriation and the sensitivity around the repatriation of human remains is a really important question. I'm not going to go into this too much because I think it could be quite traumatic and triggering for people generally, but particularly for people who belong to communities where this is a fact of their history. This is an account of an Indigenous woman who discovered their ancestors' remains as part of one of these collections. So, and this article is this is part of the Searchable Human Remains database held by the Smithsonian Institution. So, if you want to know more about if you want to read more about how it feels, then that is an article that is linked. This is a reassessment of a narrative. A area in West Virginia that was previously called an uninhabited hunting ground is indeed not uninhabited. So, having been told that the state was a hunting ground for tribes in the surrounding states, this is apparently not the truth. The period in question is known by archaeologists as being proto-historic. So this is the time that covers the arrival of the first European American explorers around 1550 AD through the region's colonization from about 1700 to 1800. According to a cultural affiliation statement that's been authored by the archaeologist Bob Maslowski, proto-historic West Virginia included a wide range of Siouan, Algonquin, Iroquoian-speaking groups, including the Osage, Omaha, Shawnee, and Delaware, the Seneca and Cherokee. They found artifacts like corn cob impressed pottery, weeping eye shell masks in fort ancient villages. And so this is Siouan pottery and masks in fort ancient villages, which are considered to be Algonquin, which is pointing to communication, trade, and even intermarriage. There's the Marmet village site that's near present-day Charleston includes these intermingled artifacts as well, in addition to animal effigies and a noded pipe. So we have got science-based research that supports the idea of only recent reforestation between periods of occupation between Native American and European American peoples. So Dr. Kristen de Groor said that her research alone cannot provide explicit proof against the hunting myth, but what it demonstrates is that a Synochrous forest alternation occurred around 1650 to 1670. This she's referring to regrowth of trees on land that was likely previously cleared. The plan is that she's going to explore this fast-growing second growth forest, and her research has already been described in a linked in this article West Virginia Explorer magazine article. So what we're pointing out here is if we want to assume there were some uninhabited lands, it is important to note they were not necessarily empty because the Native Americans did not want to live there. It might have been a side effect of European American expansion elsewhere, possibly worsened by drought and other factors. We're also told that we must also recognise that the native use of a hunting ground was different than recreational hunting today. While proto-historic Native Americans did live in permanent settlements, they would have travelled far from their villages for seasonal hunting that was a crucial part of their diet. Visits from Ohio or Pennsylvania tribes were not day trips or even long weekend trips. Their temporary hunting camps were important and likely involved repeated use of specific locations. This is going to change our perspective from a story of unwanted or unclaimed West Virginia land ready for the taking to a story of colonialization and sometimes violent conquests. So we will wait to see what the further research shows. Seeing some interesting conversation about the just me. Minorities see the same opportunities because of who they are, not what they are. I fully agree. I think, though, I'm just to add to this, what you're saying here, that who they are is instructed because of the cultural identity, the community, the heritage that has been passed down to them. That is part of who every individual is. And that is, to my mind, what this particular museum is looking for. They are looking for somebody who, because of their particular background and the cultural milieu that they live in, that they were raised in, that their family comes from, the things that they are connected to, the understandings they have, the language and the shorthands that they have within their families and their wider community, they are understanding on a cultural level of items and artifacts and their uses and the stories around them in ways that might be able to be written down in books, but it's not ever going to be the same as living it. It's just not. I think I don't think it's necessary. It's obviously not the same because, but for example, being a Londoner, there are things that I understand, and I think maybe lots of British people understand. There are things that as a Londoner that I understand that tourists simply don't. It is unspoken, and things do get talked about. For example, what side you stand on the escalator. I cannot express to you. There's no real words to express how rooted that is and how obvious it is that somebody is not a Londoner if they don't know that. It is absolutely just a thing that happens. And an individual stands out like a sore thumb as being not from here if they don't do it. But the thing is, as well, and it's part of the way that London works, is that you come from somewhere else, whether it's outside of the city or from another country, you live here for a couple of years, maybe a few months, you take the tube enough, you become a Londoner. That's the thing, you absorb that. And Jessie, there are signs for tourists. There are. It's when people talk about how British people love a queue, my God, we love a queue. And let me be clear, you may not think there's a queue. We know there's a queue. When it comes to getting on the bus, we are at the bus stop and we know who was here first. We know. And there's going to be an order, don't push in. Even if we're not standing in a queue, there's still a queue. There is always a queue. You stand on one side of the escalator, you walk on the other side of the escalator. That is the rule. When you're getting on the tube, you wait for people to get off the tube. They are the rules. They're the rules. And while they are things that somebody who has never been here, has never lived here, wasn't raised here, can tell somebody else, you don't understand the importance of it unless it's your everyday life. And that's a really basic way of talking about it. But I understand, for example, that in Native American communities, feathered headdresses and feathers in general have incredibly important cultural significance. I understand that. Do I understand it in the way of somebody who is an Indigenous person understands it, who lives in that community, who has fathers, uncles, mothers, etc., for whom that is part of their everyday lived experience, that is part of their tradition, their culture, their honouring of each other. Do I understand it in that way? Absolutely not. And there's not a book that I could read that would give me that understanding. There's simply not, because I haven't lived it. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Elverta. And so, yes, just me, that I completely agree. It is about these people. It is about giving people opportunities, absolutely, but also their cultural experiences that they can bring, who they are because of the world they've grown up in, is the asset. So people who are Latino, Latina, or Latinx, they are valuable for this internship because of those identities, because of what the museum is trying to achieve. That part of them is value adding for that museum community. And just me, I absolutely do my best to learn. But I will always say that I will never speak from a place of authority, because this is where, in the same way that when I talk about the return of the Benin bronzes, and there are communities, there's a group, I believe, in New York or Washington who is seeking to prevent the return of the Benin bronzes, because they say that the bronze that was used to make those bronzes was exchanged as part of chattel slavery. And thus, communities of African Americans for whom that is their heritage and that is their generational trauma, they say that the Benin bronzes being in New York or Washington is for their community. Now, I can educate myself on the argument points, but it's absolutely never going to be my place to talk about it. It's never going to be my place to weigh in and say who's right. All I can ever do is present it. So we are now hopping into the new news, friends. A 70-million-year-old giant dinosaur skeleton has been found connected from skull to tail. This is a chance discovery that was made in southern France. And this is a rare specimen. We're told it's an almost complete dinosaur connected from its hind skull to its tail. It was found in May 2022 by a 25-year-old amateur paleontologist. We've heard about, hobbyist metal detectors. Apparently, amateur paleontologist is also a thing. And of course, why not? So his name's Damien, and he and his dog, can you imagine Fido's like, that's a large bone somewhere, and he just found the biggest bone ever. They found something unusual while walking in a forest. They found a cliff edge that had recently collapsed, and then it found an exposed bone sticking out. It has been identified as nearly 10-meter long, that's 32.8 foot long fossil. It's been identified as a titanosaur skeleton upon excavation. Now, the Natural History Museum, I'm not sure if the exhibition is still on, but it was on. They had a titanosaur exhibition, and my goodness, that thing is blinking huge. So we've got, it's currently residing in, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Krutzi Museum's laboratory, where it's being further studied. I think they're holding bits of it there. It's thought that the estimated age of this fossil is around 70 to 72 million years old. Titanosaurs are four-legged. They roamed from the late Jurassic epoch to the end of the Cretaceous period. They are massive, huge. These fossils, titanosaur fossils, are widely unearthed in Europe, but few with anatomical connection. So finding the skeleton in this connected state is suggesting that the body was buried before it had entirely decomposed, which allowed some tissues connect the bones to one another. So this completeness will make it easy to determine whether it's a new species or a new specimen of a species already known. The region where it was found is known to be rich in fossils of dinosaurs, and it's building one of the largest collections of dinosaurs from the Upper Cretaceous in France. There are plans to continue research on the fossils and to further search the area, and the group's members are hoping to get funding to create a large-scale museum that can accommodate and present these collections. So if and when this museum is built, I will just... The new dog's name should be Dino, or should we call the Dino Fido? Everyone gets renamed. Is it the Flintstones pet dino? I mean, I remember that cartoon. It's bigger than that. My son likes a dinosaur. The size of this skeleton genuinely frightened him at the Natural History Museum. He wouldn't go near it. That's how big it is. And he is used to roaming around the dino gallery at the Natural History Museum. This one was he didn't want to get anywhere near it. And they let you like walk around underneath it. He was having none of it. None of it. Baby dino, yes. Fidosaurus, excellent. Papasaur, yes. Chickens are tiny dinosaurs. I was watching a TikTok today. Is it called a shoebill? Those are, they look like Jim Henson puppets, but they are murder birds. Absolutely terrifying murder birds like cassowaries. And when you see a murder bird, whether it's a shoebill or a cassowary, you're like, the blood of dinosaurs flows through your veins. And it's deeply upsetting. It's deeply upsetting. Don't even get me started on seagulls. If you haven't seen a shoebill, Google it. Because they are vicious, and they have, when their eyes look at you in a photograph, I don't like to say this about an animal, but I genuinely, when I look at a shoebill, I'm like, there is evil in your soul. There are evil in your soul. Rumpelstiltskin, Snudpuckle, they can eat a crocodile, and also they kill their siblings. They are Look at a shoebill's eyes. They know they're dinosaurs. They do. They know. They know they're dinosaurs. I think they also might be Satan. It's possible they're also Satan. They really scare me. They have fear. They give me fear with their eyes. There's one in a zoo in Japan. You can see YouTube feeds from it. Okay. I might Google that if I want nightmare fuel. Ooh. Okay. So, Laura searched it. Is it still on Earth? Yes, it's still on Earth. And it will take your hand clean off. Clean off. Ooh. It's a big yikes. It's a big yikes for me. I wouldn't ever hurt it, mostly because I don't think I could. I'm going to leave that alone. They do. They do. Suzanne says, shoebills radiate, come at me, bro vibes. That is what it is. It's like they are the only bird where I look at them. They are the Peaky Blinders of birds. I genuinely think they probably have a flick knife somewhere on their person. Wendy says they are now calling traditional dinosaurs non-avian dinosaurs. My goodness. Pterodactyls would like a word. Do they count? At least they're not dino-sized. Depends on the dino. They're like raptor-sized, right? I'm bad at sizing things. I don't know. Yeah, bad times. Ancient stone tools found in Ukraine might have been used by early humans over 1 million years ago. This is research that was published in the journal Nature. These are chipped stones that were deliberately fashioned from volcanic rock. They were excavated from a quarry in the 1970s, but archaeologists have used new methods to date the layers of sedimentary rock to more than 1 million years ago. Amanda says, shoe bills are my favourite bird. Have you trained an army of them? Are they your defenders and protectors? have you got a little Fagin's gang of murderous shoe bills? Because I tell you what, if I felt I could train some shoe bills, they would be my little army. We are told this is the earliest evidence of any type of human in Europe that has been dated. We don't know which early human ancestors fashioned the tools, but it might have been Homo erectus. As there are no fossil remains, they can't be sure. It's thought that these were likely used for cutting meat, perhaps for scraping animal hides. The suggestion is the tools might be as old as 1.4 million years old, but others say that they might just be over 1 million years old. Still a long time. The earliest stone tools of this type were found in Eastern Africa, and they date back to 2.8 million years ago. This site is significant because these have been found. This is the furthest north that these have been found. It's the earliest site that far north. This suggests that early humans who dispersed from Africa with these tools were able to survive in diverse environments. Quote, the oldest humans with this old stone tool technology were able to colonize everywhere from warm Iberia or Spain to Ukraine, where it's at least seasonally very cold. That's an amazing level of adaptability. So how cool is that? On Manda has pterodactyls aren't considered dinosaurs. They're reptiles and the cousins of dinosaurs. Well, other species other than humans do make tools, and I believe, in fact, that there is increasing evidence of more and more advanced tool use among primates in certain areas that is being documented currently. So, yes. Talking about tools, Neanderthals are thought to have used glue to make stone tools 40,000 years ago. This is called the earliest evidence of multi-component adhesive in Europe. This is a sophisticated mixture of ochre and bitumen. That's two raw materials that could be procured from the region in what is now France. This is giving research new insights into intelligence of this now extinct human species. I mean, with Neanderthals, are we calling it extinct? Because isn't now the thought process that they interbred with other hominids? So it's not necessarily an extinction. That doesn't count as an extinction, does it? Anyway, so we're told the development of adhesives and their use in the manufacture of tools is considered to be some of the best material evidence of the cultural evolution and cognitive abilities of early humans. Quote, these astonishingly well-preserved tools showcase a technical solution broadly similar to examples of tools made by early modern humans in Africa. But the exact recipe reflects a Neanderthal spin, which is the production of grips for handheld tools. These are kept in the collection of the Museum of Prehistory and Early History, but it had previously not been examined in detail. Swiss archaeologist Otto Hauser recovered them in 1907. They were rediscovered during an internal review of the collection, and their scientific value was recognised. The items had been individually wrapped and untouched since the 1960s, and so the organic substances that used to adhere them were very well preserved. So ochre is a naturally occurring earth pigment, whereas bitumen is a component of asphalt. It can be produced from crude oil, but it does also occur naturally in the soil. In this glue, the ochre content was more than 50%. This is because air-dried bitumen can be used unaltered as an adhesive, but it loses those properties when such large proportions of ochre are added. So what they did was they tested this in tensile tests with experimentally produced reference material. It was, however, different when they used liquid bitumen. That's not really suitable for gluing. If 55% of ochre is added, then apparently a malleable mass is formed. It's only just sticky enough for a stone tool to remain stuck in, but the hands stay clean. So it's a good material for a handle. They've done microscopic examination of the use wear traces on these stone tools, and it's revealed the adhesives on the tools from Le Moustier were used in this way. In this region, ochre and bitumen had to be collected from distant locations, which means effort, planning, and a targeted approach. Quote, taking into account the overall context of the finds, we assume this adhesive material was made by Neanderthals. What our study shows is that early Homo sapiens in Africa and Neanderthals in Europe had similar thought patterns. Their adhesive technologies have the same significance for our understanding of human evolution. We have a revelation about the bones of a bogman. It has been discovered that he was violently bludgeoned to death and left in a Danish bog. He is a Stone Age individual who is known as Vitrup Man. He was discovered in 1915 by peat cutters in the midst of a harvest. It's thought that he died as part of a ritual sacrifice sometime between 3,300 and 3,100 BCE. This is the height of the local funnel beaker culture. Now, archaeologists have the strongest evidence that this is not, in fact, where he was from. It's thought now that he was a foreigner in Denmark, and this has been discovered through investigating Mesolithic and Neolithic gene pools in Eurasia. They have the remains of his right ankle bone, a shaft below a shin bone, a fragmented skull, and a jawbone. Isotopes in the tooth enamel and proteins of the bones portray that he was a coastal hunter-gatherer in his upbringing. He ate marine mammals and fish in a cold northern climate. That there were deposits of strontium, carbon, and oxygen isotopes from the Scandinavian peninsula that are found in his teeth forever. He has similarities with Mesolithic people from Norway and Sweden. Why he left that place to join a society hundreds, even thousands of kilometers away is unknown. In his late teens, his diet seems to have switched to farm food like sheep and goats, and that this was in his teeth and bones. The researchers don't know whether his one-way commute was forced or voluntary, since his way of death nor his lifestyle reveal much about his social standing. He might have been an immigrant or a trader who became integrated in equal society as other members of the local Funnelbeaker society. He could also have been a captive or an enslaved person providing labour, possibly maritime skills. These ritualized bog bludgeonings, we're told, were common in Denmark at the time, seemingly without regard to a person's social status. Quote, evidently such dubious honour was also given to persons of non-local provenance. So I wonder if we will learn more about him and what happened. A 3,000-year-old purple factory has been discovered This is made of snails. We are talking, the dye stuff is known as Tyrian purple, and it comes from the habitat of mollusks, which apparently the Phoenicians began harvesting in the 16th century BCE, which is in the city-state of Tyre, which is today in present-day Lebanon. Each snail would have yielded little more than a drop of this apparently quite smelly liquid. So to get an ounce of dye, you would need 250,000 snails for an ounce of dye. Purple is thus incredibly labor intensive, but it was so widely produced that there are piles of shells discarded, and they're essentially geographical features of the region. This dye, we are told, is worth more than 3 times its weight in gold, according to a Roman edict that was issued in 301 AD. Was reserved for the use of priests, nobles, and royals. And despite this high-ranking thing, the smell of the dye was absolutely rancid. Aurora, thank you so much for the super sticker. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What they didn't know is where all of this purple came from. There are a few locations along the Levant southern coast and in Cyprus that showed evidence of dye making, but now we've got this new study coming out of the University of Haifa in Israel that suggests that through most of the Iron Age biblical era, so this is roughly 1150 BC to 600 BC, there is a small promontory called Tel Shikmona, which is on Israel's Carmel coast. It wasn't a residential settlement, but rather a purple dyeing factory. So to find this site is really significant and special. This research was published in the Journal of the Institute of Archaeology of Tel Aviv, and it proposes that during the first half of the 9th century BC, Israelites took over Tel Shikmona and set about cornering the lucrative purple dye market. Quote, the purple manufacture at Tel Shikmona overlapped with the existence of the first temple in Jerusalem. For most of that time, it was the only place known to make the dye. Therefore, it's the only candidate to provide the colour for the scarlet and sapphire hues of the temple's robes and the tabernacle curtains. Fascinating. Stuart, yes, why purple was an imperial colour, and all the way through the wearing of purple in sumptuary law and who gets to wear purple. It's still very tied to ecclesiastical garments of the highest order. So yeah, it remains visibly. I think, there's something, we still recognize purple as luxury, I think. I wonder if that's why lots of people's favorite quality street, not mine, it will kill me, but lots of people's favorite quality street is the purple one. I wonder if they actually like the chocolate. I mean, it's supposed to be quite a good chocolate. I wouldn't know. It's got a nut in it. Or whether it's in part the colour. I'm seeing reference to heretic snails, and I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how we've got there. I've clearly missed the chat where we've got to heretic snails. But yeah. A statement released by the University of Birmingham is stating that an international team of researchers who sought to analyse DNA samples from remains of 25 people who lived in what is today known as Bahrain. They lived there between 300 BC and AD 600. They have looked into their DNA samples. 4 of the samples were sequenced because, and they could do the 4 because of poor preservation of the rest of the remains. Um, and they determined that 3 of these 4 individuals carried the G6PD Mediterranean mutation, which is the gene that provides protection from malaria. So they therefore think that people who lived in this region would have had some natural resistance to the disease. Quote, according to our estimates, the G6PD Mediterranean mutation rose in frequency from about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, coinciding with the onset of agriculture in the region, which have been ideal conditions for the proliferation of malaria. So essentially, the human genome responded, or rather, survival meant that the breeding pool altered so that this particular mutation was able to proliferate and protect people from malaria. An ancient Egyptian sarcophagus uncovered on the Nile Delta, is now en route for restoration. This is the 26th dynasty sarcophagus that was uncovered at a university hospital construction site in the delta town of Banna. It is being restored after undergoing a rescue excavation. This has been relocated, and a specialised team from the SCA and the Grand Egyptian Museum have conducted preliminary restoration tasks at the excavation site, including mechanical clearing and reinforcing of the sarcophagus and its lid. It's now going to be transferred to the Qualubia Antiquities area for thorough maintenance and restoration procedures. Apparently, this sarcophagus weighs approximately 62 tons, inclusive of its lid. It's a big boy. And it is thought that it belongs to the overseer of the scribes during the reign of King Sarmak I of the 26th dynasty, because there is an engraved relief portraying that king beneath the lid. They are committed the SCA are committed, we're told, to ongoing rescue excavations until all activities at the site are concluded, ensuring the absence of any additional archaeological artifacts. So, just me. Does this not happen in London too? Every time you dig, there's something? Yes, pretty much every time a new tube line is laid, a new foundation is set, something rocks up. I mean, yeah, we're finding it just seems like most of London's a plague pit. There's a lot of burial grounds. Yes, pretty much constantly. Which is why the Museum of London Archaeology rocks up to virtually every major site of building work in London. A clay seal stamp from the First Temple period has been found in Jerusalem. Quote, this is the first time that such a sealing has been found in a legal excavation, and we are told it supports the biblical record of the existence of a governor of Jerusalem 2,700 years ago. It measures 13 by 14 millimeters, and it was made using fired lump clay. The seal on the top half has 2 figures in a facing position, while the back has an inscription written in Hebrew script. It reads, quote, belonging to the governor of the city. This title is known from the Bible and from extra biblical documents referring to an official appointed by the king. We are told, quote, that the seal, 2 men face each other in a mirror-like manner above a double line. Their heads are depicted as large dots lacking details. The outward-facing hands are dropped down. The inward-facing hands are raised. All the figures wear striped knee-length garments. It's thought that the seal was likely placed on an important missive or official dispatch, serving as an indication of the governor's office. This was made in the northwest part of the Western Wall Plaza, and this is one of the several buildings that exposed in this area likely the destination of this missive and its seal. Excavations around there have found large assemblages of seals, suggesting that the buildings were inhabited by high-ranking officials involved in the governance of Jerusalem. A preserved wooden cellar floor has been found from the Roman period. This is archaeologists from the Frankfurt Archaeological Museum have found this wooden floor in Frankfurt. This is, we think, dating to around AD 110. Nida, largest town on the Limes, rose to prominence as the capital of Civitas Taunacium. The town had a population of around 10,000 inhabitants. However, by about AD 259, this population went into decline because the Alemanni's conquest of the Agri Decumates region. There's been a discovery of a Roman residential house situated on the southern side of the Roman town's two main streets. And within the dwelling is this preserved wooden floor with steps leading down a staircase. In the cellar, they have the remains of charred beams, charcoal, and fire debris, indicating that this house was presumably destroyed by fire. Archaeologists also found ceramic and glass vessels and several objects made from metal. The spokesperson from the museum clarified the team's going to analyse the archaeological materials to ascertain the precise date of the building's construction and destruction. They're also going to use extraction techniques using synthetic resins, silicone rubber, and gypsum laminates. And that's allowed them to successfully transport the cellar intact for further preservation. Quote, the cellar is not the first wooden cellar with fire debris identified in Roman Nida. Similar finds were discovered during excavations in the ancient city numerous times over the past 100 years, yet were less well preserved and not examined as extensively with modern excavation methods. So, looking forward to seeing what they're going to find from it and what they think was going on in it. I will keep you updated. It is amazing that the wood never the preservation is absolutely fabulous, isn't it? Kit of the Weird Woods said, was there a hypocaust? Usually burnt Roman villas burn when the hypocausts are put in. I don't know. It didn't say in the article. But if that comes up, I will, of course, share when we get the updates. Sticking with Roman news, we have a cache of jewellery, coins, and exquisite vials for storing mourners' tears found in the graves of a Roman family. This is the grave of a Roman-era woman, man and child found in Bulgaria. They were found late last year when a farmer was ploughing his field. They found two distinct graves, the larger of the two about 10 feet long, that had the remains of a man in his 50s and a woman in her late 40s. They were buried with jewellery, coins, ceramic, glass, and vessels and other artefacts that have been dated to the early 3rd century. In the smaller grave, they found the remains of a 1 or 2 year old child. They do think that this grave is slightly older, and thus they suggest that the child predeceased their parents. The grave's contents suggest these individuals were of a certain status. They found a rare bronze medallion depicting the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, who is also known as Caracalla. this valuable artifacts, it pictures Caracalla's visit to Pergamon in present-day Turkey, where he travelled near the end of his life to seek Asclepius, the god of medicine. They also found at this site a lamp, a leather shoe, 6 coins dating from between 200 and 225 CE. They found a gilded pendant, a silver-plated brooch, and exquisite gold ladies' earrings. There's also evidence of funerary rituals. They found an amphora, probably once held wine designed to be held by funerals. And they also found, quote, exquisite vessels in which mourners initially collected their tears that were later used for fragrant oils. DNA analysis of the human remains has not been done yet, which could reveal more about the individual's ages and origins. So I'm not quite sure why they assume these are parents and a child if they haven't done DNA analysis. Unless there is some kind of markation that points that out. Quote, I think that this is a sad family story from the first half of the 3rd century. Quote, a dead infant buried by their parents who had their last resting place on the same spot where they buried their child. So we will see what is found when this study continues. People are very I'm seeing lots of comments about the mourner's tears. It does that feel to me that ranks in the kind of goth AF angle of things. I sort of have visions of people collecting mourner's tears today and wearing it in a vial round their neck, in the place of wearing your lover's blood in a vial round your neck. It feels very Wendy, yes, very ritual purposes-y. That's not words, but we are where we are. So we have got items used by Roman cavalry and other treasures have been found by metal detectorists, them again, in Wales. The Ian Porter made this discovery in 2020. He says, I was very excited when I found these items, understandably, to think that the last person who touched them lived almost 2,000 years ago, and it shows some of the history of the island. He notified the Portable Antiquity Scheme, as you must do by law. He also found a decorated brooch, 4 coins, a lead pot repair, all dating to the Roman period. He found a 45-pound Roman copper ingot used in copper manufacturing that was likely smelted using metal from a nearby mine. What this is a culturally mixed artifact group, an important new find. Considering that the items were located near a spring, whoever buried them possibly saw the location as a, quote, significant place for a religious ceremony at this time of conflict and change. It's thought that many of the items, including chariot fittings and harness pieces, were placed at the site between AD 50 and 120. That the coins were then added throughout the Roman period, with the last being struck between AD 364 and 378. Quote, Anglesey has long been associated with this important period of our history. The items themselves and the nature of how they were deposited are of immense archaeological significance. These are going to become part of the collection at Oriel Mon. How fascinating is that? And we have got more Roman news. Archaeologists have found a new fresco at Pompeii depicting Greek mythological siblings, Phrixus and Hele, depicted in vibrant colours. Gabriel Zutrigel, who is the director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, described the find as a poignant reflection of history unfolding once more. Quote, history has repeated itself. It's a beautiful fresco in an excellent state of conservation, as we can see. The myth of Phrixus and Hele is widespread at Pompeii, but it's topical too. They are two refugees at sea, a brother and a sister forced to flee because their stepmother wants rid of them, and she does so with deception and corruption. She, Hele, fell into the water and drowned. This fresco shows vibrant colours with exquisite artistry, with Hele depicted on the verge of drowning, her face obscured by waves as she reaches out to her brother. Zuttrigel expressed optimism about making these meticulously preserved homes accessible to the public in the near future, highlighting the cultural and historical significance of this latest uncovering. As we know, at the site, they have recently found 13 nativity-style statuettes that provide evidence of pagan ritual traditions. They also found that what looked like a pizza in a fresco. And on it, it also includes an item that looks suspiciously like a pineapple. So hopefully soon, more to see, even more to see in Pompeii. Jose, I'll be honest with you, it's not a myth that I am familiar with either. I will look into it some more. It's not one that I know very much about, or I've not heard of this one before either. So we will see. Moving to the Saxon period, talking about things being found beneath London. Archaeology's southeast archaeologists have found traces of a Saxon town beneath the National Gallery in London. Following the collapse of Roman Britain, Londinium fell to ruin. It was abandoned at some point during the 5th century AD. Anglo-Saxons settled about 1.6 kilometres to the west of the former Roman capital on what is present-day Covent Garden. It then talks about how Anglo-Saxon England was split into multiple kingdoms, and this town first found itself within Essex, then Mercia, subsequently in Wessex. And repeated raids during the 9th century led to the abandonment of Lundenwic and the repopulation of Londinium for safety behind the Roman walls. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle notes that Alfred the Great refounded London, known then as Lundenburg. Archaeology Southeast has announced the discovery of Saxon material during excavations of the Sainsbury wing at the National Gallery. So this now indicates that the town's urban centre extended further west than previously thought. They have found a hearth, post holes, stoke holes, pits, ditches, and levelling deposits from the western suburb of the town. Sorry. Carbon dating of the hearth has returned to date range from between AD 659 and 774. The quote, the evidence we uncovered suggests the urban centre of Lundenwic extends further west than originally thought. This was made all the more exciting by having the chance to share that information and how it relates to archaeology across London with young people from the city. So this was done as part of the Jubilee Walk excavations for Archaeology Southeast. Presumably, this archaeology program and project was also involved outreach work with the local community. So let's see what else we find there. A 1,200-year-old Lord's tomb has been unearthed in Panama, and it's absolutely laden with gold. This is located in El Cano, which is in central Panama. It's thought that the lord in question lived in the late 700s and that he would have been in his mid-30s when he died. An impressive amount of grave goods have been found belonging to this unnamed royal. They found ceramic artifacts and gold pieces from a funerary trousseau. There are included in this are 5 pectorals or ornamental breastplates, belts made of round gold beads, 4 bracelets, 2 earrings depicting a man and a woman, an earring shaped like a double crocodile, a beaded necklace, 5 earrings crafted from sperm whale teeth plated in gold, a set of circular gold plates, 2 bells, a set of bone flutes, as well as bracelets and skirts made with dog teeth. He is referred to as a high-status adult male who was buried face down, which is apparently a common burial practice during that period. The excavation is ongoing, so they are looking to find out if more people have been buried alongside this individual. What they do say is that tombs from this period often include the burial of a woman and others beneath the man to serve as companions. So it's possible that he may not be the only person in the tomb. Other people buried in multi-person graves from this period were likely interred to accompany the individual into the beyond. This site was originally discovered in 1925, investigated in the 1970s, but it wasn't until 2008 that a more formal excavation of the area was launched, revealing this large necropolis. It's thought that this area was used by a pre-Hispanic chieftain-based society from around AD 700, and that it was abandoned in 1000. This area houses several well-known monoliths, in addition to a ceremonial area containing wooden buildings, according to the statement. So, we will see what other information comes out of this and what more we can learn. We have now got a story about another amateur treasure finder who nearly got himself into a sticky situation. This is a 1,100-year-old Viking sword pulled from a UK river by a magnet fisher. This is a corroded sword. Trevor Penny, searching for lost and discarded objects on the River Cherwell in Oxfordshire in November 2023, he made this discovery. Quote, I was on the side of the bridge and I shouted to a friend on the other side, what's this? He came running over shouting, it looks like a sword. It's been dated now to a period when the Vikings travelled to the British Isles to plunder, conquer and trade with the ruling Saxons. This newly discovered sword is now in the care of the Oxford Museum and it will eventually be put on display. The officer said that it was archaeologically rare to find whole swords and treasure of historical importance still intact. We are informed that there was a little dispute with the landowner and the Rivers Trust who don't permit magnet fishing. Indeed, the latter sent a legal document saying they wouldn't take action on condition that the sword was passed to a museum, which is what has happened. So, Jose, arrest him now, desecration. It's the fact that, as we always say, it's great when we hear these stories about people taking message texts out onto fields and finding amazingly cool things. And, magnet fishing is really, we find amazing things like this. However, in every case, it's really important that you have permission from the individual or group that has control and ownership of that region. Interfering with farmland, particularly farmland where livestock graze on, is not the one. There's a lot of right to roam in the UK, and people, take their dogs and things like that. Make sure that if you are investigating the countryside or walking through the countryside, first and foremost, you leave it the way you found it. Don't feed any animals don't feed any animals. Don't feed anybody's animals at all. Take your rubbish with you. There are horrible stories about horses eating, for example, bags of dog excrement that people have just thrown over hedges and then dying because of it. Particularly in the spring when it's lambing season, make sure if you're taking a dog that they are not worrying the sheep. Those sheep might well be pregnant and that can be really damaging, really dangerous to the sheep and their young. So I understand that this is really attractive and there are so many cool stories about people finding things, and there is, of course, a right to roam. Do so with caution and compassion. And equally, when it comes to things like mudlarking on the Thames, when it comes to things like magnet fishing, our riverways and our banks are, in some cases, archaeological sites. They are also sites that work in particular ways with a lack of erosion and a lack of fiddling about, that means that those waterways stay safe for people to move along them. It stays safe in ways that to prevent flooding, and lots of people interfering with those in unregulated fashions can cause damage that have wider contexts. So I speak with an interest in having the archaeology turned up, but also these are people's real lives in the present day. Don't mess about. Jessie, you do need a permit to mudlark on the Thames, for sure, and there are places where you are not allowed to mudlark. And also, mudlarking very specifically means that you cannot dig anything up. It is not excavation. You have to be able to pick it out of the soil. However, it does, just because you need a permit, there's nobody policing this stuff, really. And equally, like when things get dug up, if it's done, it can be really, I've said this before, it can be really, really vital for the archaeology to be discovered within a strata. And an amateur might destroy that strata in a way that loses that thing's place in history. So all of this stuff, caution. Let's not be, just wild pirates roaming around. Moving on. Oh, Elverta. Right, not Rome, not Rome, Italy. Right to Rome, as in roam about. There is things that otherwise might be seen. I think in the States they would be considered private land, so farmland. Lots of farmland has on it walkways that are for the public, even if the farmer cannot restrict access, even though it's technically on their land, because there is a right to roam and move through. Yes, that's how it's spelled, right to roam. And that's why you see things like various styles and stuff. You can hike all over the place. So yeah, that's what it means. 1,000-year-old vessels have been found in Guatemala that held tobacco, possibly used as narcotics to induce deep sleep, visions, and divinatory trances. The residue that has been found on these pre-Hispanic ceramic vases contain traces of nicotine, according to a new chemical analysis. This is in an area, a Mesoamerican area, thought to be one of the greatest cities. It was during the late Classic period, which is AD 650 to 950. Quote, we knew tobacco was a very important substance employed for a variety of ritual and therapeutic purposes in ancient Mesoamerica and across the New World. However, archaeological evidence is scarce because the remains of tobacco rarely preserve well. Archaeologists in this study analysed vases found near the Acropolis of El Bul, and they chemically tested samples scraped from the inside of 7 of them, and they came back positive for traces of tobacco. They think this could mean that instead of being smoked to dry leaf or sniffed in powder form, it might have been consumed as a liquid infusion. It's possible that people from this unnamed culture were drinking this liquid infusion tobacco. If you have high concentrations of nicotine that you ingest, it can be toxic and even lethal. So a drink mixture hints that tobacco was used during rituals as, quote, narcotics to induce deep sleep, visions, and divinatory trances. Quote, we hope the analysis of residues inside these well-preserved vessels will reveal details about the uses of plants in ritual activities. The ceramic vessels were found near the remains of sweat baths, which is further evidence that these tobacco infusions might have been used in purification rituals. This discovery offers clear evidence that tobacco usage in the Americas began earlier than experts thought. But this is not, however, the earliest example of tobacco use to be found. A 2021 study based on charred seeds found in the Utah desert determined that people were smoking tobacco at least 12,000 years ago. An 11th century astrolabe has been discovered, which reveals Islamic Jewish scientific exchange. This astrolabe has both Arabic and Hebrew inscriptions, making it one of the oldest examples ever discovered, and it's only one of a handful known in the world. This instrument was adapted, translated, and corrected for centuries by Muslim, Jewish, and Christian users in Spain, North Africa, and Italy. When the museum that was holding it didn't know what it was, and they thought it was actually potentially a fake, it's now being described as the single most important object in their collection. Dr. Giganti said, when I visited the museum and studied the astrolabe up close, I noticed not only was it covered in beautifully engraved Arabic inscriptions, but also faint inscriptions in Hebrew. I'm seeing some conversations about licking. We don't lick the archaeology. I don't. I also wouldn't recommend drinking nicotine. If you use e-cigarettes or vapes, don't drink that. That will kill you. He said, I thought I might be dreaming, but I kept seeing more and more. It was very exciting. I bet it was. We are told this is not an incredibly rare object, but it is, however, a powerful record of scientific exchange between Arabs, Jews, and Christians over hundreds of years. They say that astrolabes were the world's first smartphone, a portable computer that could be put to hundreds of uses, providing a two-dimensional model of the universe fitting into a user's hands, allowing them to calculate time and distances, plot the position of the stars, even forecast the future by casting a horoscope. This astrolabe so this article, it talks all about the various inscriptions. So if you're interested in what this in learning more, this article is a great place to start. It really lays it out very clearly. This astrolabe is thought to have made its way into the collection of the Veronese nobleman Ludovico Moscardo. And then in a marriage, it passes to the Miniscali family. And then in 1990, this family founds the Foundation Museo Miniscali Irizo to preserve the collection. Dr. Giganti points out, quote, this object is Islamic, Jewish, and European. They can't be separated. Fabulous. ET said there was a lady on Time Team analysing soil that did taste the soil. Look, much like if you're a professional and you feel safe licking the soil, crack on. If you do not have professional training, that means that you have been instructed that it's sometimes okay to lick the soil. It's not okay to lick the soil. If you have not had professional training where you have been shown when it's appropriate to put your tongue on the artifact, don't put your tongue on the artifact. That's Steve. Look, we might well have eaten some soil as a child. I'm not saying I didn't, but as the possessor of a 3-year-old, although that kid is a plague vector, a veritable petri dish of germs and disease, what is nary a sniffle for him feels like I have been hit by a 40-ton truck. So, while he can probably eat soil, and don't get me wrong, he's quick as a whippet. If he drops something on the pavement, I'm never getting there in time. That's going straight in his mouth. I would not do that because what will barely touch the sides on him will put me in bed for 3 weeks. Don't lick the soil. Don't lick the soil. Kit of the Weird Woods, which professions? I don't know. I hear about people licking bits of things they found in the ground to see if it's bone or pottery. Like, is it ceramic? Is it bone? If it's bone, it sticks to your tongue. I think I saw Temperance Brennan do it on bones. I know that's not science, but maybe it's based on science. She was written by a scientist. Maybe them. Maybe they're allowed to lick the things. Maybe they're allowed to lick the things. Michelle, you need a pound of soil before you die. Yes, but that might also be the reason. That might also be the reason why you die. I'm not. Do you know what? Right, I'm not going to condone licking the artifacts. It's never going to happen. But I'm assuming most of you are adults. You're free to do what you want. I'm not the boss of you, but I don't approve this message. I don't approve this message. Look, my mum, I think, used to eat coal. So pica is very real, and as you say, it can sometimes be a sign of a mineral deficiency. Correct. Don't lick things for science or archaeology. I just don't. I don't approve that message. Leave the licking to the professionals. This is filth. That's made me really chuckle. I almost want to put that on a t-shirt, but I feel like no merch provider would let me sell that. Leave the licking to the professionals for free on the internet. Oh dear, oh dear. We have got a story about 1,000 burials and a medieval village found in the excavation of an abbey that was destroyed in the French Revolution. I'm laughing at the comments, not the burials, just making that clear. The excavation of a medieval French abbey has revealed more than 1,000 burials, including those of plague victims. Of course, there's a plague pit, because why wouldn't there be? This is the dig at Beaumont Abbey, revealing almost 8 centuries of use before the events of the French Revolution shut it down. It is located outside of Tours in the Loire Valley of France, which is roughly 110 miles southwest of Paris. The abbey was founded in 1002 on a site that had already been occupied by the village of Belmont since at least 845. The abbey grew quickly, becoming one of the largest communities of nuns in the province. In 1789, during the French Revolution, in which the king and queen were beheaded, the abbey and its land was seized by the state. The 46 nuns who remained there were expelled. The church and its associated buildings were eventually torn down in the early 19th century. So far, the work has shown the Abbey Church underwent at least 2 major structural changes prior to being torn down. The first incarnation was small, with a flat apse, which is a semicircular structure with a semi-dome roof. It doubled in size around the 11th or 12th century. Another century or two later, the church grew with the addition of an ambulatory, meaning aisles along the nave or the central part of the church that holds the congregations. During the 8th centuries, they add rooms, redo tiles, add toilets. They are essentially constantly changing. They then said they know there was a plague epidemic that occurred in 1563, and in that same week, 9 nuns, 2 of them on the same day, died and were buried in the same grave. They also think that there are high-ranking church members among the tombs. There's an abbess's tomb buried with a dozen pots. And they think the abbess in question might be a granddaughter of Louis XIV. She would have lived a relatively comfortable life. There's also an 18th century porcelain tea service that's been discovered during the dig that suggests these nuns imported fine ceramics from China, likely at great expense. The archaeological investigation has now been completely filled in, allowing a new development to go forward. After 14 months of work in the field, quote, the great scientific and human adventure now continues with the laboratory study of the data collected. So as that comes together and we get the results of that, I will let you know what the update's going to be. Manda, don't lick the artifacts on the front of the shirt. Leave the licking to the professionals on the back. I'm just going to screenshot that. There we go. Screenshot that. Lovely jubbly. Debbie, which doesn't go hand in hand with the poverty of nuns. It certainly doesn't. However, the Reformation didn't come out of nowhere. And questions about excess in the church were happening and were being considered for a long time. And it is one of those ideological discussion points. On the one hand, if you, for example, minister to and preach based upon something like a prosperity doctrine, then I'm thinking of what we see now in the televangelists and mega churches, that having today private jets, a Lexus, a Rolex, etc., a Patek Philippe, whatever other signs of extraordinary wealth in a pastor is not, even in a broadly speaking Protestant denomination faith, an evangelizing Protestant denomination faith, that is not a bar to a sense of the divine being present. We are seeing in certain Protestant denominations the conspicuous consumption that was complained of by many people in the Protestant world and the Protestant at its very foundations. It was the complaints that were made against Roman Catholicism and Roman Catholics when they were seeking reform. Opulence, majesty, gold, bells and smells in certain faith contexts are completely permissible, because that largesse and that level of funding, if you put faith alongside works as a way to get into heaven, accumulating money, being a place where money can be deposited, is that people are doing works for the good of the church. So a church with loads of gold and loads of silk and vestments, etc., is a church where the congregants have a reliance that they have essentially bought the privilege of the divine. There are So I mean, I can speak to the abbeys in the UK that were palatial, and look, they may well have taken vows of poverty, but Cardinal Wolsey took vows of chastity, and so did many popes. Popes, all popes took vows of chastity. Didn't stop them fathering countless offspring. Yes, there's not. So I suppose the difference between personal largesse and a high quality of luxury living. Does an individual nun own an imported porcelain tea set? Probably not. Has it been bought on her orders? Has the abbess ordered it? Almost certainly. Is it therefore the property of the convent or the abbey? Yeah. Are they using it? Yeah. Look at this cute little thing. An 800-year-old horse figurine has been found during an excavation that has been conducted as part of the construction of a new fire station in Poland. This is a glazed horse and it's got a hole in its underside. The thinking is this hole was for a stick to be put in so that children could essentially use it as a puppet. So like make it gallop along. They also, in this excavation, they found traces of a medieval tower, pottery fragments, a buckle, a knife sheath made of bone, and an amber ring. So this little, I wonder, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else we will see and what we will learn about these discoveries. But I think this horse is just so sweet. Isn't it a cute thing? Staying with Poland, Wendy, yes. I think it was, I thought it was just adorable. And I just imagine a child just loving it. Staying with Poland, a rare basilisk dragon badge has been found. This is a pilgrim's badge. An openwork pendant cast out of an alloy of lead and tin, showing a basilisk, which is a reptile that's reputed to be a serpent king. This basilisk is, according to legend, hatched by a cockerel from the egg of a serpent or a toad, and it was thought that it caused anybody who looked in its eye to die. In medieval depictions, they often take on the characteristics of cockerels. Sometimes they are thought to be able to breathe fire. In an English Revised Version of the Bible, in Isaiah 14:29, the prophet's exhortation to the Philistines goes, "Rejoice not, all Philistia, all of thee, because the rod that smote thee is broken, for out of the serpent's roots shall come forth a basilisk, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent." This basilisk dragon enclosed in a circle is a badge that serves as a kind of talisman. It's intended to ensure the success in travel of the wearer, to protect the person against all kinds of evil like assault, disease, theft, other accidents. We are told that such finds are incredibly rare in Poland. They are generally found in Western Europe and date from the early Middle Ages. Pilgrims' badges, there are a variety of them. They might be saints, knights, zoomorphic figures, human forms, and other figures as well. The oldest examples date from the 11th century, and they are connected to the Way of James, known as the Camino de Santiago. This is the pilgrimage leading to the shrine of the Apostle James in the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia in northwestern Spain. And yes, these pilgrims badges, it's the whole thing in the Canterbury Tales as well about kind of wearing them, and also, various dispensations that can be bought and pardons and all, and the kind of, we did the pardons prologue when I was at GCSE. But yes, there's a good line today in reproduction pilgrims badges, and they are really fascinating things. And it sort of feels like people who do a lot of pilgrimages, they kind of collect them all, almost like scouts badges. Wheezy Squeezox, we are indeed in the year of the dragon. So anybody who is having a baby this year is technically the mother of a dragon. And if you've got twins, then you're the mother of dragons. So if nobody's making that t-shirt for pregnant people in the year 2024, you're missing a trick. So, Kit of the Weird Woods, the you would have expected saints rather than a basilisk. This is really cool. They are majoritively most of the ones that I've seen have been saints, but other times it will be something connected to the miracle of the saint. So, for example, if you think about St. Edmund the Martyr, who is shot with a bunch of arrows but doesn't die, somebody might wear a pilgrim's badge of an arrow as a representation of St. Edmund, if you know what I mean. Archaeologists have discovered a fragment of a medieval inscription in a church in Melnik. 124 artifacts made of stone, ceramic, and metal were discovered during archaeological excavations in the Church of the Holy Mother in the town of Melnik, which is in southwestern Bulgaria. The church and study has had two main stages of construction. The first from the 13th to the 14th century, the second from the middle of the 19th century. A part of the floor of the church's reenactment stage was revealed, first of all. Then they found the apse of the church was examined underneath, and it was determined that the total length of the previous church was 17.35 meters and that it had a single apse. There's going to be more excavations done. The work in the coming season is going to determine exactly when this temple was first built. In the second sectors, the restorers have worked to remove a layer of fresco from the 13th and 14th century. They have stated that because of this work, some of the frescoes have been saved despite severe fragmentation. This town in the Middle Ages was a border town between the Bulgarian and the Byzantine Empire. It was a big city on the main road to Thessaloniki. Today, it has 325 official inhabitants, and nothing there to suggest that only a century ago, more than 10,000 people lived on the site. Historians and archaeologists, as well as locals, are really excited about the discoveries made at this Church of the Holy Mother, because it's going to potentially mean that this becomes part of the tourist route. It's a vital historical monument that could rejuvenate the whole area. This site is presented with a poster in the Bulgarian Archaeology 2023 exhibition at the National Archaeological Institute, and it's going to be shown there until May the 15th. So there we go. hopping to the early modern period and also to Guernsey. Archaeologists excavating one of the oldest parts of Castle Cornet have uncovered Chinese porcelain and clay pipes. Clay pipes show the current level being worked on by the team can date back to no later than 1590. And the next stage of the dig are going to take them back further into the medieval period. One of the reasons why keeping that strata in place is so useful. They are going to be searching for new findings. They have found so far a Bellarmine jug made in Germany in the mid-17th century and 2 stone cannonballs and a piece of slate used as a tally. They haven't found any coins yet. Quote, the one thing we haven't found, which I would have expected, is coins. People are always dropping coins, even these days, and things were just the same in the old days. Coins can have a very accurate date. We haven't found a single one. That is weird. That is weird. Once the excavation is complete, the ground's going to be refilled with a new path put in to improve accessibility on the walkway. So we've got this, what we can see here is a fragment of the Bellarmine jug, which is from the 17th century. And then we are also seeing these 2 stone cannonballs. Next up, these are, the images here are, I mean, I had to do a double take of the one that's being held in the hand because I thought, honestly, I thought that what I was seeing there was made by AI. So this is a gold ring, and I don't know how to pronounce that word, a glass segment among 30,000 objects that have been uncovered in Sweden. This has been a 2-year project, and the remains of hundreds of buildings, cellars, streets, everyday objects have been found. Quote, the building remains and the cultural warehouses form a historical archive that holds enormous amounts of information and stories about the political and economic ambitions, everyday life, and living conditions of previous generations. They've got insight into large parts of the medieval city. They find traces of the social and economic existence of different groups of traders, craftsmen, civil servants, church people, poor and rich. You can see there's a gold ring with a Christ motif that's been found. The gold ring is, I mean, if I hadn't seen this first, I mean, this takes the cake for me, but the ring is absolutely gorgeous as well. This segment, which is named after the Danish island of Als, is an unusual find. They are small glass setting stones, typically associated with ecclesiastical context, and they were used as pilgrim amulets. This one dates from the 13th to the 14th century and depicts 3 carved figures. They have also found evidence of burnt farmsteads in connection with the Denmark-Norway attack on the city, and they've also found cannonballs, musket balls, pistol bullets, and swords. This pilgrim amulet is just fabulous. Now, obviously, it has been in part reconstructed here, but it is just what a wonderful thing. I can't find what the blue is. Is it aquamarine? What's it made of? Glass. How is it made blue? That's my question. It doesn't see, I don't think it's a complete piece from the way I'm looking at it. It does look like a silver sand. I think what we have here is the bottom part that we're seeing, that blue part, would have been the whole amulet. And what we're seeing is actually a computerized completion of how it would have looked in whole. I think that's what we're seeing. The blue, though, is just absolutely phenomenal. So, Beverly, enameled glass, you're saying? I mean, I have no idea how enameling works. Beautiful. Steve, if you add aluminium salts to glass, it glows blue. Interesting. Okay. I mean, so loads of work's gone into this. Fabulous. We are staying Manza or cobalt oxide. I mean, I look forward to finding out more about this. Amazing. We have Henry VIII dated stained glass is in dispute as haunted house auction is halted at the last minute. The fate of precious Tudor stained glass marking the union of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn is in dispute after a last-minute withdrawal from a private auction. Conservationists have intervened to prevent the sale, which is deemed to be of exceptional importance because it includes a window made in the 1530s as well as older medieval glass. These windows were hanging in a 16th century Dorset manor, and they were destined for a private contents auction until they were spotted. The rare stained glass lots were pulled from bidding after a visit from Historic England and on the advice of the local council's conservation officers. These roundels were due to have been auctioned in a clearance sale ahead of the sale of the whole of Sandford Orcas, a Grade 1 listed building and a popular candidate for the title of England's most haunted house. Wasn't aware. One of the more important windows is thought to have come from Nonsuch Palace, which is Henry VIII's lost royal hunting base in Surrey. Built in 1538, it fell into disuse. Now only the foundations remain. We have got here a sketch of how Nonsuch might have looked. So as you can see, just elaborately decorated and really, I mean, what a loss for that we haven't got it. The auctioneers handling the sale, Duke, said that the glass roundels were not fittings but were suspended from wires. He said Historic England backed this view and he had no idea why Dorset Council chose to ignore the advice and requested the stained glass be withdrawn from auction. However, he said they immediately complied. The manor from which this is going to be sold is near Sherborne, and it's up for commercial sale for the first time since 1736. It's got a guide price of 6.5 million if you've got some spare pocket change when it went to market. Only two families, the Catholic Royalist Knowles and Medlicots, have occupied the manor since it was built in the early 1530s. It's described in 1939 by Arthur Mee as a green lap surrounded by hills and reached by a sunken lane. How lovely. Window fittings and panels are protected in a house with such strong heritage status, but the laws are different for decorative items or chattels. Quote, it is a criminal offence to undertake works without permission, but aside from that, any portable glass that bears heraldry, there is also a great historic value because of what it can tell us about patronage, allegiances, marriages, and hierarchy. Moving items can prevent the understanding of the whole history of the place. The rest of the sale did go ahead last week. Medieval glass roundels of the Virgin Mary and the head of a saint were sold for £6,000, which was more than 8 times their upper estimate. So, and apparently with regard to the haunting, the crowded ghosts in residence reportedly include 3 mysterious ladies in red, white, and black. Oh, a whole troop. Sounds like a girl group. Along with a farmer in a white smock, a Georgian footman, a fox terrier, and most tellingly, perhaps, a young man staring at a stained glass window. Shane says, when I think of Nonsuch Palace, I think of some fairy tale Disney palace. I mean, looking at that drawing, it's not far off, really, is it? It's just not how, because it doesn't survive, it's not how we imagine English or British history, because we have this sort of sepia toned view of what the past looked like. And it's so easy to forget that particularly the medieval and certainly the Tudor world, the Tudor court, was a riot of colour that would potentially to us have bordered upon the offensive. Like, particularly in the medieval period, bright primary colours that would have looked not out of place in your average kindergarten classroom. And this is the finest, most luxurious furniture to adorn a king's bedchamber. It is not subtle in any way, shape, or form. A rare metal slab in Maryland was apparently once part of a suit of armour worn by colonists. This was found at a 1634 settlement, a flattened scrap of metal, and it's slightly concave, apparently this about the size of a cafeteria tray. which is it's a really odd way to measure things, I suppose. But okay. And we all sort of know how big that is, I guess. A- After cleaning off this mud caked item, they had no idea, researchers had no idea what they found. And then they viewed x rays that confirm it was a tacet. This is a piece of metal from a suit of armor designed to hang from a breastplate to protect the wearer's thighs during battle. We're told seeing the x ray image really brought it to life. We could see the individual bands of steel affixing it together and the rivets decorating the piece. I mean, in the cafeteria tray, it doesn't look like much. The x ray really does show you what's happening. Those, I love the little hearts. Cute, isn't it? They don't know who originally wore it. But it's thought that it was ditched because it was hot, heavy, and impractical in this humid environment. You keep your breastplate though because you're protecting your core. The tacet is one of many artifacts that's found as part of an ongoing project that began in 2021. So far, they found a pair of 17th century scissors, a decorative braid made of metal thread that might have been on a glove or a coat, and the outline of a large building that the settlers erected shortly after they landed. Um, they also found the 400-year-old human remains of a teenager who they think might have been an indentured servant. Quote, when colonists moved here, they needed a place to offload all their goods, so they built a storehouse and a cellar immediately adjacent to it, likely had roof and walls. Most likely someone chucked the tacet in there. Crazy artist lady, why hearts on armor? Great question. It could be that is a logo or design that connects to a person's name. Maybe they have part of their insignia has become tied to a heart in some way. Um, Within sort of jousting, for example, that culture of honor and chivalry. Henry VIII liked to play, for example, Sir Loyal Heart. You know, those, it could be all sorts of things like that. And I mean, equally, a heart in this way is a fairly recognizable and obvious pattern to create in a rivet form. This is not, when you think about the kind of scroll work that's done on the fine armor worn by Henry VIII for his tournament armor, for example, this, despite being later, looks incredibly basic. So it could simply be that when you're making something out of rivets, you've got a limited number of shapes that are going to look like anything. This is amazing. So in 1807, a ship is seized by the British Navy. The crew is jailed. The cargo is taken. It had loads of packages, which archivists have apparently just opened. And in it, as being held up, is what looks like quite a modish sweater. Despite the fact it looks brand new, despite the fact that it has been more than 200 years since it has seen the light of day. Along with the sweater, they found fabric samples, stockings, silver coins, and other items. The sweater is, though, seemingly the winner of the day. It's a hand knit sweater shipped from the Islands by a carpenter named Niels C. Winther. This is a statement from the National Archives. And it's accompanied by a letter from Winther to the fiance of Mr. P. Ladson in Copenhagen, saying, quote, my wife sends her regards. Thank you for the pudding rice. She sends your fiance this sweater and hopes it's not displeasing to her. This letter was written in Danish. It's fabulous. Look at the preservation. This cargo ship had sailed from the Faroe Islands through Denmark. It was targeted by the HMS Defence off the coast of Norway on September 2nd, 1807. The cargo and the ship's mailbox were taken. The plan going forward is to digitise the letters in the package and the package's contents. I mean, it's just It's incredible. The survival of it is incredible. Just brilliant, isn't it? Kit of the weird. You wonder why why the ship was seized. Oh, do you know what? That is an excellent question. I am assuming it's seized by the British Navy during the Second Battle of Copenhagen. I'm not going to pretend to know what that was about. I have no idea, but it was seized during a war. Kit of the Weird Woods said, I could see that in shops now. Me too. Absolutely. It's fabulous. Yeah, I can see many textile makers want to see what the original patterns are. I would like to know how this is woven. I mean, this is to me as well. It kind of has a much later feel. Like if you told me this is from like the 40s or 50s, a sort of short thing to wear with a rah skirt, I'd totally believe you. Amazing. We have the Bankfield Museum has bought Colin Firth's Pride and Prejudice shirt, playing Mr. Darcy. I believe this is the shirt that he comes out of the pond that sent many a heart aflutter. I was a young lady of modest development, but it stirred something in me. I'll tell you that for free. It was sold for £25,000 at auction. It was one of 7 outfits bought by the Bankfield Museum in Halifax. It was bought using donations to the museum. So it's a free to enter museum that's also purchased the Gentleman Jack outfit worn by Saran Jones. It's also got the yellow pelisse from the 2020 adaptation of Austen's Emma, 2 outfits from Downton Abbey, and the King and Queen's outfits from the King's Speech, in which Firth also starred. Before the sale, the auctioneers are given the shirt from the 1995 production, an estimated price of £7,000 to £10,000. So yes, when this aired, I was approaching the ripe age of 10, and I'm not going to lie, that and the other one that stirred me was the adaptation of Tom Jones that had Max Beasley in it. I had such an offensive crush on Max Beasley. It was borderline illegal. Borderline illegal. So the estimate, with a buyer's premium, so it was estimated that it would go for £10,000 with a buyer's premium of £5,000. It went for £20,000, so double the estimate. The proceeds of the auction are going to go to the John Bright Foundation, an arts education charity offering creative programs to children and young people. The costume is featured as part of an auction of items from the archives of Cosprop, the costume house founded by Oscar-winning designer John Bright. The auction was held by Kerry Taylor Auctions in London. So it sounds like everybody is the proceeds are going to charity. The museum funded to get it. It's a free museum. It's a win all around, I think. It's a win all around. Look, Kit of the Weird Words. I love the article knows the shirt is the most exciting part. The shirt is undeniably the most exciting part. That is one of those. It's been so often spoofed and reproduced and memeified. That moment of him coming out of the pond, all up in himself. Chilsey. Now, this is the museum for the Hey Girlies ad. Do you know what? Didn't think of that. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. But of course, it would be classier than Hey Girlies. It would be like, Hey Ladies. Hey Ladies. Hey, girly pops. Okay, here we go. We are on to the ding dongs. And I remember my bell of my tiny piddling boy. Ding dong. I don't know what's happened here. At a recent Gory Kilmugridge district meeting, Councillor Dermot Devereux condemned the vandalism that had occurred at the Market Square graveyard. Quote, I was actually shocked to hear that a cemetery that goes back to the 1600s has so much history in it. How could people go in there and do this kind of damage? Because in fairness to the district manager and the staff, the amount of time, effort and resources you have to put into that, the refurbishment of that with gory tidy towns over the last number of years, they've done a fabulous job on it. Councillor Devereux was shocked and upset by the photos he'd seen of damaged headstones. Quote, we need to condemn this in the strongest possible way as we can and plead with people of Gory. If you know who's responsible for this, please come forward and let it be dealt with under law. And it does seem to be just vandalism for the sake of vandalism. It doesn't seem like there's grave robbing or any kind of robbing of metal. Like, why would you do this? What level of, I mean, this is not going around and tagging like your Elaine 4-letter initials across a shop awning, is it? It's, you know, you're not Banksy, babe. Chill out. This is just, what's the point? Why would someone do it? I mean, I get tagging. I do get it. I get, you know, you only have to walk around places like the Tower of London or indeed any historic site to see that you go up to the brickwork and some board guard has basically done the 16th, 17th, 18th century of Dave was here, date and place. You know, you walk around the tower and you see that prisoners have been absolutely bored rigid, and they have carved various things into the walls. I understand leaving your mark on the place, but this is that do you know what, man? That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. That's a sledgehammer and a lot of spite. This is spiteful. I understand that vandalism is always a crime. I get that. But in sort of tagging and leaving your name on something and trying to take that kind of claim and ownership, there's a different psychology. This is just spiteful. I don't know. See, Aurora, this is what I was thinking. Having problems with this in Los Angeles, the goal seems to be the theft of all the bronze for scrap memorial statues too. It doesn't seem to me that there's any bronze involved. That's what I was like, is this somebody trying to break into a grave? But they are calling it vandalism, not attempted grave robbing. It's so, what a waste of time. So that's what I have for ding dongs. Now let's hop on to events and exhibitions. As you will see, where I have been able to locate it, I have in the description box put the accessibility information. That is not the case in each instance, and it is not the case for the first one we're going to look at. This is in Colorado, the Amache National Historic Site in Colorado. This is also known as the Granada Relocation Center, one of 10 incarceration sites established by the War Relocation Authority during World War II to incarcerate Japanese Americans. 10,000 people, over 10,000 people, mostly American citizens, were incarcerated here from 1942 to 1945. It is described as a place to reflect, recommit, and further the pursuit of freedom and justice. So this is telling the story of those individuals who were interred as potential enemy aliens, despite being American citizens. So that is open. If you are in and around this area, please let us know what the site is like, what stories are being told there. I couldn't find accessibility information. It might be that I'm not looking in the right place. So if anybody finds it, please, if you find the accessibility information, please let me know and I will add it to the description box later, but I haven't been able to locate it since, or yet rather. The Louvre, in preparation for the 2024 Olympics, is hosting this exhibition called Olympism, Modern Invention, Ancient Legacy. This is essentially a exhibition on artworks and products connected to the Olympics, the original Olympics, and in the present day as well. And this is at the Galerie Richelieu, and it opens on the 24th of April and it runs to the 16th of September 2024. So if you are around the Louvre and you get a chance to go and see that when it's open, please do let me know what you think of it. Last but by no means least, this is a bit closer to home for me. We are talking about St Albans in the UK. St Albans is just north-ish of London, northwest of London. Do you know what? My geography is diabolical. It's up that way. And this exhibition is called Women Doing Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is an exhibition at the Verulamium Museum. So when the Romans came over, they found Colchester, Londinium, and Verulamium, among other places. Colchester, Londinium, and Verulamium are also the spaces that Boudicca is like, I am going to ruin it. So the Verulamium Museum is the Museum of Roman Life in St Albans. And in this exhibition, you meet the female archaeologists of the 1930s who brought Verulamium to life. And you also get to meet 4 of the women who populated this ancient landscape 2,000 years ago. So you've got dig notebooks and diaries, telegrams, photography. This is the female archaeologist at the 1930s Verulamium dig site. Then you go back in time, you can meet Iron Age and Romanized women who left their imprint on the archaeological record. Hear their voices echo from the past and listen to spine-tingling musical instruments, war horns, and marching armies. Boudicca, you might think you know, she is legendary, but you haven't met Regina, Flavia, or Sabina yet. Oh, Scarlett, St Albans is roughly northeast of London, Hertfordshire. Yeah, that makes probably a lot more sense. My geography is appalling. I'd like to point out as well, what's really embarrassing is that I went to school in Hertfordshire, not far from St Albans. Not far from St Albans. And I should know where it is, but I don't. I went there virtually every day. I went to school in Elstree, not far from St Albans. I would like to go and see this exhibition. I'm going to try and get up there. It's a bit far from me now. It's already open. It's running from the 8th of March to the 4th of July. So I haven't got much time. But I want to go and find out about Regina, Flavia, and Sabina. They sound amazing. I'm going to see if I can make it up there. Okay. Fab. If anybody else gets a chance to go up there, let us know what you think. So that is what I have for you today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to sit down. 115 of you are still watching. I'm very, very grateful. If you haven't already, please do like this live. If you like my channel, please make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you haven't been unsubscribed. If you notice next to the bell icon, next to the subscribe button, there's a bell icon. Hit that, select all. It will tell you when I've next uploaded and when I'm next going live. I also have a website, www.katrinamarchant.com. That's a place to go and find my merch. It looks like I'm going to be doing some more merch because we've had some great ideas tonight. And also, if you go to the contact page and you put your email in the email box, then I will send you out an email once a week with links to all of the stuff. So any uploads, but also if I'm doing a live, I will send a link to that. So even if YouTube doesn't notify you, you will have all of the stuff in your email once a week. I am very grateful that you've taken this time with me, and I'm grateful that you support the channel as well. Thank you ever so much. And thank you to everybody who sent me articles. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Please do the licking shirt, Aurora. I'm on it. I'm on it. Oh, Shane, thank you for reminding me. It is St. Patrick's Day this coming weekend. Enjoy if you celebrate. Behave yourselves. Be careful. Look after yourself. Can't be good. Don't get caught. Yes, please do thumbs this up as well. And I look forward to speaking to as many of you as possible during the premiere live for the next video on Friday. But for now, I hope you're going to all have a lovely rest of your Monday, however much of your Monday you've got left to go. And whatever time of day it is for you, that you're also going to have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope we'll have a chance to chat in that premiere live on Friday. But for now, I hope that you all take care of yourselves. And from me, it's bye-bye.